Hello and welcome to Should You Play, our video solution to your gaming curiosity. Today we're talking about 2024's Game of the Year winner Astro Bot, which is a spacefaring 3D platformer that is getting excellent reviews across the board.
But a big question on everybody's mind is whether or not Sony's new mascots, I guess, deserved the GOTY honour above games like Black Myth Wukong and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth especially. So, to answer this question, and let you know if the game is worth your time in general, we got it, we played it, here's what we thought.
Note that we will only be discussing the first star system to keep this video as spoiler free as possible. With that being said, let's start with the game's basic premise.
First of all, I want to say how nice it is to see platformers back at the forefront in gaming. First the plucky Squire wowed us with innovative gameplay and now Astro Bot. The plot of Astro Bot is, of course, not meant to be taken seriously in this light-hearted quirky romp. You get to control the main protagonist Astro, and it's your job to save lost bots after your mothership is attacked by the main antagonist Nebulax, a big alien space bully.
Individual levels are presented to us as planets amongst 6 different star systems that act as hub areas. Think the warp room from Crash 3, but in space. Just like in Crash games, once you beat all the levels in a single system, there is a boss battle, providing you have enough bots that is, since the number of bots you have, unlock most things in the game, but we will get to that later.
There's a total of 90 levels of varying difficulty split across each of the 6 galaxies, and some levels are heavily based on classic PlayStation franchises and characters, such as Ape Escape. I absolutely loved these shoutouts to other franchises that I adore. But anyways, you can freely fly around space in your PS5 controller-shaped spaceship, which you should totally do, and be sure to investigate anything that looks odd, because that's how you can unlock bonuses and secret levels.
The point of view for the player when flying around kind of reminds me of the galaxy map in Mass Effect 2 and 3, where you can control the Normandy and fly towards planets. This is also reminiscent of Ratchet & Clank: A Crack in Time, where you can do the same thing, albeit you can manually land on planets in that game and the perspective is a lot different. The vibe is definitely there though.
I can see that inspiration has been taken from a multitude of games such as New Super Lucky's Tale, Super Mario Galaxy, and many of the Ratchet & Clank games. It's a great amalgamation of classic elements of platformers with some modernisation and heaps of creativity thrown in for good measure.
From the hub star system you can enter any level or planet you have unlocked, and it is seamless in how fast you go from space to the actual level. Each level has completely different aesthetics, puzzles, layouts, enemies, power-ups and more. We will only talk about the first star system to avoid spoilers, but here you get to see a kind of ice cream world, an Aztec inspired realm and even a construction themed environment.
Trust me when I say that the graphics are astounding, or astro-ounding. This game is very colourful and the graphics are as astounding as they can be for a game not striving for graphical realism. My only issue with the world and animations is that sometimes the game can feel like an assault on the eyes and ears with so much going on. It feels like the game is constantly screaming out for your attention, even though it already has your attention because you're currently playing it.
I do agree with that. I felt the same way watching you complete the parade introduction of Ratchet & Clank's Rift Apart. So many sights and sounds can exhaust the eyes and ears. Or perhaps we're just old. It does take a lot longer to scroll down to our year of birth nowadays on forums and stuff.
I'm old, Gandalf.
In terms of controls, Astro Bot is quite innovative. Unlike most PS5 games that ignore the PS5 controller capabilities, Astro Bot takes full advantage of the DualSense controller functions similar to the Astro's Playroom tech demo back in 2020 that launched to showcase the console's capabilities. There's adaptive triggers, haptic feedback and gyro controls, which are basically motion controls.
Astro's core moveset consists of jumping, punching, hovering, spin attacks, grabbing ledges, and he has the ability to swim underwater, a feature that was absent in Astro's Playroom. My only gripe is that the game can be unclear at times when it comes to action prompts. You can approach something that looks interactable and nothing happens, so you walk away. But then you go back to the same thing, an action prompt appears that didn't trigger before. Thanks, game.
I wasn't too keen on the haptics, gyro controls and adaptive triggers. Perhaps it's because I'm not used to these features in my games apart from adaptive triggers in first person shooters. There's this part where you have to repair the motherboard by hammering in nails. It's just a pain, makes you look silly and almost accidentally throw your expensive controller. This simply isn't what I look for when not playing the Switch, and even then I try to avoid motion control stuff. It just feels gimmicky. Thankfully for those who share my disliking of the fancy PS5 controller functions, the game provides a variety of accessibility settings that allow you to disable gyro controls, haptics and adaptive triggers.
But speaking of the Switch and Nintendo, I definitely see big Super Mario 64 vibes in Astro Bot, which has a similar hub world setup and platforming style in open environments. Albeit the controls for Astro Bot are obviously much more fluid and modern. The game forces you to think three-dimensionally in a way that our brains have now been trained not to, due to other genres of gaming taking the forefront.
This further emphasises how smartly designed the levels are. Admittedly, getting around can sometimes be a pain in the backside, like having to hit spinning ladybirds and get them in a position where you can bounce off them onto elevated areas. But all in all, the levels and platforming is tons of fun, especially with the inclusion of power-ups.
Like platformers of old, Nebulax isn't the only enemy and obstacle in your way. There's robots, glob monsters and general environmental obstacles. There are a lot of similarities to PS1 era Crash and Spyro games. The open areas and environmental hazards remind us of Spyro, and the game has the general addictiveness that Crash and Spyro both have. Although personally, I see more Ratchet and Clank in this game, minus the emphasis on combat.
The platforming elements within levels are ridiculously precise, like in Crash, and the difficulty can range from easy, these bots are so cute with their little legs, family fun, to controller smashing gamer rage. Unlike classic platformers, Astro Bot has infinite lives, so you won't get a game over. I swear you young'uns have it so easy these days. Remember dying in Crash 1 and having to start the level right from the start again just for a colour gem? Ugh.
I know I don't look it, but I'm beginning to feel it in my heart.
And, unlike Crash and Spyro, you can't manually save. It's all autosave, but it is very frequent.
So far, we are both loving the variety of levels and power-ups. Astro has access to 15 abilities that help the player in combat, to solve puzzles and navigate the environment inside levels. The powers can range from super fun to super annoying. There's this one that inflates and lets you bob around the air, a bulldog booster that lets you zoom across gaps and break through obstacles, and perhaps my favourite power-up, which is the twin frog gloves. These extendable boxing gloves remind me of the best power-up you can get in the game's Cell Damage that does the exact same thing.
The powers are found inside levels and attached to Astro, but these are not the only things that can bolster Astro's abilities. When a player first revisits a level, they have the option to purchase a Bluebird helper, which alerts Astro to the location of missed puzzle pieces and bots. One thing I like about this game is that collectibles are not just pointless, they actually serve a purpose in unlocking new areas as well as navigating the central hub that serves as your base of operations and working as a team to unlock puzzle pieces.
Admittedly, I'm not keen on the central hub world called Crash Site, since this is where we crash landed after our mothership was attacked. It feels more like another level than a base camp. I would have preferred a cozier setup like in Ratchet & Clank 3, where you can walk around the interior of your ship because it feels more self-contained instead of being just another planet. Just like in Banjo-Kazooie, you collect puzzle pieces that form part of a whole jigsaw puzzle that, once completed, unlocks certain elements in your central hub. For example, the Gacha Lab, which spawns purchasable aesthetics for your hub world bot citizens that come in hand with a cutesy animation when you interact with the character. Kinda pointless, but fun and is an optional extra.
The bots are actually adorable and it's hilarious watching them scramble to your location on their little legs once called to action. There are also secret characters that can be unlocked that are not bots, but you will have to play for yourself to find out which ones. Bots you have collected can be viewed roaming around the hub world or in a database format. The centralised hub has different areas that unlock when you fulfill the unlocking conditions, which is a specific number of bots rescued.
It's really interesting seeing how the bots help navigate the hub. When called to action, bots can lift up platforms, create a ramp, or even form a line for you to walk or swing across.
So, should you play Astro Bot? Hell yes! Admittedly, asking people to shell out 50 to 60 quid on a 3D platformer might seem like a tall order, but it is worth it if you love these kinds of game. Also, Astro Bot has a much better spaceship to control than the one in Starfield. Yes, I went there, come at me.
All in all, Astro Bot just stands out as something special. It has the same creative spark we saw in The Plucky Squire, and is exactly what I expected from an Astro Bot full game following Astro's Playroom. But now for the big question, Did Astro Bot deserve to win Game of the Year at the 2024 Game Awards? Personally, I would say no, because Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is a superior game. However, I am completely biased as someone who generally prefers RPGs and JRPGs over platformers.
Without having played any of the other nominees, it is hard to say whether Astro Bot deserved to be Game of the Year. One thing I will say is that the breadth of genres displayed here is so wide that it's unfair to pit them against each other in this way. I suppose it's based on what you think makes a game deserve such an award, because each to their own.
Let's put it this way. Now, I'm not saying Astro Bot didn't deserve their win, but if you were a media outlet in the Game Awards voting jury, who would you want to piss off the least? Indie developer number 1? Indie developer number 2? Atlus? Square Enix? Or Sony? I'm gonna go with the latter. Yay, Team Sony, love your exclusives, keep it up.
Heather really isn't the best person to ask about the Game Awards. Her views on it are probably the closest to being full-on conspiracy theorist she gets.
It's not a conspiracy theory if it's true.
Yes. But anyways, let us know your thoughts on Astro Bot. We had an absolute blast playing this game and would love to hear what you make of it. I've been Craig.
And I've been Heather.
This is Amalgamingo, and thanks for watching.